Welcome to the Simple Monthly Budget Tracker. This video is going to show you how to use the budget tracker in detail and also to show you some of the features that come with it. So it's a very simple tracker, but it also has some really nice features. So when you open up your template, you'll have an instruction sheet, a budget example sheet, and then your budget sheet. So let's just walk through some of the features in the budget example sheet. So at the top left here, we'll have the start date and finish date. So that is normally for 1 month at a time, but it can be for any period that you like, and a start balance. And then the top part along here has the dashboard. So there's a dashboard for cash flow, and this is all calculated off the amounts that you put in for your various categories, including income, bills, expenses, savings, and debt, and it'll give you an ending balance. So it'll have a plan, or what you're budgeting, and then how much you've actually earned or spent in this column. Then the next part here is a graph showing how much you've got left to spend and how much you've already spent. So this is based off this cash flow table. And nice feature here, you can also select how much you've got left to budget. So how much you've got left to budget and how much you have budgeted. And then if we pan across to the right, we have a graph here showing for the various categories, so income, bills, expenses, savings, and debt, what your plan was and how much you've actually, so in income, your plan was to earn $4,750 and you've actually earned $4,615 for the month. And same thing for the bills, expenses, savings, and debt. So looking at your actuals against your plan. And then the final part along here with the dashboard area is a spending breakdown of your top 10 areas of spending. So in a graph format, plus also in a table. So these are from your bills and expenses, how much, your top 10, and also a percentage of your total spend that represents. So that's just showing the top part. And then if we pan down a little bit, we've got areas for income, savings, bills, expenses, and debt. And for each of these, what you'll do is you'll put in your plan. So how much you're expecting to earn or spend on something. And then as you're progressing through the month, you'll put that in. So in this case, bills, what we're saying for bills are your fixed expenses. So these are expenses that will come up every single month or every single period that you put it in, whereas your expenses might be more variable. So the things that, petrol, you're not necessarily every month going to spend money on petrol or pet care or medical or grab yourself a coffee or go out to a restaurant. So these are your variable expenses that will come up regularly, but not necessarily every single month. And to put those in, we also have a little expense tracker down the bottom. So that'll feed off the categories from the expense area, and that's where you'll put in your day-to-day expenses. So now that we've shown you some of the features on the budget tracker, let's go through and show you how to use it. So the first part is, if we go to the budget sheet, you'll start with this blank template, and the first part is to make a copy of that sheet. So to do that, you just right click and select move or copy. And then we're going to select make a copy, and we'll put this at the end. And then the next part is to rename that sheet. So let's again right click and select rename, and we're going to call this July. So we're going to do this for July. So now that we've made a copy of the sheet, the next part is to put in the start date and the finish date for this particular template. So again, it can be any period that you like. I would normally do it 1 month at a time, but you can do 4 weeks or 2 weeks, whatever period makes sense to you. But normally I would do this 1 month at a time. So in a lot of these areas, you'll see that it has a little pop-up box telling you what is required in that particular cell and the format that it's required in. So in this case, it's the date, and it'll be in the format day/month/year. So we can put in our start date. So I'm going to put in the 1st of July, and then we're going to put in a finish date. So this will be the last day. For me, this will be the last day of the month. So I'm going to put in 31 July 24. And this will then show as well up here, it'll show in the heading what month this is for. And then the next part is to put in a start balance. So this is what you're starting with in terms of the amount of money that you have. So in this case, I'm going to put in a start balance of 250. So you'll notice that these cells within these tables are white. So white cells indicate input cells. So anything within a table that's white will be where you can put in information in. Any cell that is colored within a table, such as here within this cash flow table or within the income table that's got a color, that will have formulas in it and that will be protected. So you won't be able to input in those areas. So the next part is to put in what is your plan for that particular month in the different areas. So let's start with income, and we're going to put in our categories. And again, we get a little pop-up box saying, please enter the category as text. So it's just helping you as to what is expected in that particular field. So in this case, we're going to put in some categories for our pay. So let's put in pay number 1, pay number 2. We're going to put in some overtime, bonus, and a side hustle. And then again, these cells are the planned amount. So how much are you expecting to earn that particular month? And again, this is asking for a number greater than 0. So in this case, we're going to put in our example, $1,800 for the first pay, $1,750, then $500, then $100, and then $600. And you'll notice as we start to put these in, the cash flow dashboard starts to update. So it'll come up with then the planned amount for your income for that particular month. And then same thing in here, you'll get a total in here and our progress bar, which will start to come up once we put in the actuals. So let's do that for your savings area as well. So in this case, we're going to put in some savings. And again, the category will need to be text. So if we put in car, renovations, holiday, wedding, and I'm also saving up for a new surfboard. So this is how much we plan to save for these particular areas for the month. So we're going to say 125 for the car, 100 renovations, 75 for the holiday, and again, we'll have a total at the bottom here, and the savings will now come up in your cash flow dashboard. So the next part in is your bills. So again, let's put in our various categories and how much we're expecting to pay for each of those bills. So let's put in our categories first. And again, the bills are your fixed expenses. So these will come through every single month. So we can also put in a due date here. This will help you remember when they're due and give you an easy overview of when your bills are due. So let's put in that for each of these ones. And again, for the due date, it has a little pop-up box to help you with how to input that data. And again, and this one is just select a due date from the drop-down list. So it'll just have the days of the month there. So we can just select that from the drop-down list. So as to when each of these bills are due. Once we've put in the due dates, we can now put how much we're expecting to spend on those bills for each month. So let's put those in this plan column. And again, it's asking for a number greater than 0. So it has to be in number format. And again, once those are in, we'll get a total down the bottom here for our total expected bills for the month. And that will now show in the dashboard as well. So the next part is to put in your expenses. So these again were the variable expenses. So things that will probably come up, but not necessarily every single month. So again, let's put in our categories for our expenses and then our planned amounts for each of those expense categories. Okay, so they're in, and let's put in how much we're expecting to spend on all of those categories for the particular month. And again, down the bottom, we'll have a total. So giving you the total for your expenses, and again, that shows up in your dashboard as well. So the next part is to put in your debt. So again, your categories in this column, again as text. So let's put in our and again with this one we can put in when those particular payments are due. So we'll put those in from the drop down list. And how much what is our expected that we're expected to pay out each month on the debt. And again, we'll get a total down the bottom and we will have our debt in our cash flow dashboard. And as we can see, all of our graphs are starting to populate with the planned amounts for the month. So now as the month progresses, you'll put in your actual amounts. So how much you've earned and how much you've spent on the various categories. So for this demonstration, I'm just going to put it in one area at a time, but you just put these in when they come in. So let's have a look at our income to start with. So our first paycheck, we got full 1,800. Our next one, let's say we only got 1,600 and we earned 520 of overtime, 75 as a bonus, and 620 of your side hustle. So as we can see, as we put them in, we'll get a total at the bottom here for how much we've actually earned. So for this month, we've earned 4,615 against our plan of 4,750. And within this particular table, you'll notice that you'll have a little progress bar against each of the areas. So in this case, the first one, pay one, you earn 100% of that particular paycheck. So it'll have a bar all the way across and say 100%. The second one, fell a little bit short on our second pay. So it'll show you 91% and the bar will not be all the way across. So that'll have that for each of the different categories. And also now up the top here, we will see the income amount coming through in the actual and a variance column. So this color indicates that it's a negative variance. So we didn't earn quite as much as we would have liked. And it'll also update now here within the left to spend graph and in this planned versus actual graph. So we have, out of our money, we have 4,865 left to spend for the month, which is your starting balance plus your income. So it'll show up in here, and in here now we're seeing how much we've actually earned. So the graph in graph format as well. So we can do the same for the various categories. So again, you would do this as it progresses through the month, but again, for simplicity, we'll just do one area at a time. So let's do our savings. So again, as you can see, as you put these in, you'll get the total at the bottom. You'll get a progress bar for each of the areas. Now in this month, unfortunately, I wasn't able to save anything for my surfboard. So hopefully next month I'll be able to put some money towards the surfboard. But we hit 90% of our savings target overall, and each of the categories will show you the progress. And then you'll also see that within this cash flow dashboard, the amount will show up in here. And again, it's a negative variance with this color being negative because we didn't quite hit our savings target. And now we can see that we've spent $360 this month. And you'll see this coming up now here as well in the plan versus actuals graph, 360 against your target of 400 for the savings. So the next part is the bills. And with the bills as well, we've got this little checkbox here. So you can check them off when you pay each of them as well. And you've got the due date that'll help you show you when those bills are due. So with each of these, when we pay them, we can just check them off. And the check, you don't have to put the check mark. It's just a nice little visual reminder that you've actually paid that bill for the month. So again, here you'll have the progress bar. So in this case, you'd expect normally your bills to be close to 100%. Electricity in this case was a little bit less than we were planned to spend, so that's good. So we only hit 93% of our expected for electricity. However, our water usage, so we were maybe showering for a little bit too long this month. It was a little bit more expensive. So again, showing on the progress bar will show you the percentage and the bar, and we'll have a total down the bottom here of our total bills against our plan. And again, this will also show up now in our dashboard, the bills amount here. So it showed that we spent $1,655 against our plan of $1,660. So we have this color will denote a positive variance. So we spent slightly less than we were expecting. And again, this is also now showing up in our graph here. We've now spent $2,015 and left to spend we've got $2,850, and the bills will now show up on this graph as well, so showing the expected bills, or the actual bills, sorry, against your plan. So let's go across and do the debt one, and again we'll just do this in one go for simplicity, but again you would do this as you make each of these payments. So again, here we've got the little checkbox, so you can just check it off, and it'll help you just visually show that you've paid off that credit card for the month. And again, here we have the little progress bar showing how much you've paid against your plan, and totals down the bottom, as well as the progress bar at the bottom. And then also showing up now in the debt area on the dashboard, in the little cash flow dashboard, as well as showing up now in these graphs. And then for expenses, what we've put in here is we've put in our plan, and again, you'll see that these are white, these cells are white, so that denotes an input cell. So the categories and the plan amount is in here. However, the actual and how much you've got left and the progress for the expenses are colored, so they're actually calculated. So what we have down here to make it nice and easy to put in your expenses, we have the little expense tracker. Now these are for your day-to-day expenses. So with this one, what you can put in is the day of the date that transaction occurred, that you paid that particular expense, the category, the amount, and any notes that you want. So again, the date will be between the start, it has to be between the start date and the end date. So you've put in your start date and end date up here. So the date of that transaction needs to be between the 1st of July and the 31st of July and in date format. So let's start putting in our expenses. So we'll put in the first one, and the category will be a drop-down list. So these will be all the categories that you put in here for your expenses. So if you need more categories, just go and add them up here, but you'll only be able to select the ones from that particular area. So for example, our first one that we want to put in is groceries. And then again, the amount will be an amount greater than 0. So we can put in how much we spent on groceries on that particular day, and then any notes that you'd like to put in. So you can just put in any notes about that. So you can just put in, for example, weekly supermarket shop. And then you'll go through, and then the next day you have an expense. You'll put do the same thing. So the date of that particular expense, the category, the amount, and in that format of day, month, year. We can select the category from the drop down. So in this case, we went out and got a nice little takeaway coffee. Oops, not $500, $5. And then we'll continue putting in the expenses throughout the month. So again, the next day we also went and got a coffee. So we've now filled in all of the expenses for that particular month. So you just put these in as you go along. Put those in, and then these will all show up in this expense tracker. So here we've got groceries of 700 was planned for the month. Our actual was 675, which means we've got 25 left to spend on groceries. And again, it'll show you the progress bar here, the percentage, and the bar showing you've spent 96% in this case of your planned grocery budget. So I'd have that for each of the different categories. So again, a total down the bottom. So our plan was to spend $1,845. We only spent $1,614. So we have $231 left, and it was 87% of our plan. So then again, the totals will then flow through into the cash flow dashboard. So for expenses, our plan was $1,845. Here's our actual spend. This color denoting a positive variance, so we spent less than we expected to. And that will give us our ending position. So our plan at the end, so we started with $250, was to have $545 at the end of the month. We've actually got $761. So we were $216 better than our plan. So we spent a little bit less than we expected to, which is great. And that will show up here in this graph as well. So we have $761 left to spend, and we actually spent $4,104 for that particular month. And that'll show again here as well, showing you what your ending balance is. And you've also got, you can select the left to budget. So in this case, we have $545 that we could have left to budget, and we budgeted $4,455 for the month. And if we scroll across to our plan versus actuals, this is now complete as well. So for each of the different categories, so income, bills, expenses, savings, and debt, you will see your actual compared to what your plan was. So income, this blue color here is your actual, how much you earned compared to what you expected to earn. And same thing for all of the categories. So blue being actual. So for bills, we spent slightly less. So you can see that in graphical format as well. So as we come across here to the right, we'll also see the top 10 spending breakdown. So you'll see the graph here with each of the different categories. So for example, rent was our number one that we spent the most on. And we'll show all the top 10 categories and how much you've spent in a graph. And then also a table. And then this amount here is the total, the percentage that rent makes up of your total spending. So this won't necessarily add to 100% because it's your total spend. And these are your top 10 categories. And probably just a final couple of tips is try and review every month. So review your spending regularly, have a look at how you're tracking against your plan, using the graphs and dashboards at the top, and look for any identified trends. So maybe look for patterns in your spending to identify areas where you might be overspending or underspending. And really one thing that I'd really encourage very strongly is to be really consistent and regularly update the amount. So especially as you come down here in the expense tracker, try and do that every single day. So put in what you've spent your money on so that you can keep a really accurate record of your finances. And that would be my final tips for you. So that is an overview of how to use the budget template with the features. Hopefully you got something out of this video. And as you go through to the next month, just make another copy of the sheet, and then you'll start again with your new starting balance and the new date. So please let us know if you have any questions. Reach out to us either through the store or in the comments section. Ask us any questions at all. And happy budgeting and all the best with your financial journey.